Welcome to Historian Diary. Today I will tell you a story about the Vatican, but this is not a story about saints or faith or holiness. This is a story about corruption, about power, about sex, about a pope who turned the Vatican into a palace of debauchery. This is the story of Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia, and what he did in the holiest place on earth. My hand is trembling as I read these documents. Letters from Vatican insiders, reports from ambassadors, diaries of those who witnessed what happened. And what they describe is so shocking, so obscene, that for 500 years the Catholic Church has tried to hide it, tried to deny it, tried to say it was all Protestant propaganda. But the evidence is overwhelming. From Catholic sources themselves, this is the story of the banquet of chestnuts, the story of a pope with multiple mistresses and acknowledged children, the story of incest allegations that shocked even Renaissance Italy, the story of how the representative of Christ on earth became the symbol of everything Christianity opposed. Comment below where you're watching from, which city, which country, because what I'm about to tell you is documented history, but it's also the kind of history that institutions try to erase. Let me start at the beginning. Rodrigo Borgia was born in 1431 in Spain. He was ambitious, intelligent, charismatic, and utterly without moral restraint. His uncle was Pope Calixtus III. And in the 15th century, nepotism ruled the Vatican. In 1456, at age 25, Rodrigo became a cardinal, not because of piety, because of family connections. For the next 36 years, Cardinal Borgia accumulated wealth and power. He had multiple mistresses. He fathered at least 7 children that we know of. This was not hidden. This was public knowledge. Cardinals were supposed to be celibate, but everyone knew Borgia had a family, and no one stopped him, because he was powerful, because he was rich, because the Vatican in the 15th century was not about holiness, it was about power. In 1492, Pope Innocent VIII died. The College of Cardinals met to elect a new pope, and Rodrigo Borgia wanted it. He wanted it desperately. So he did what any ambitious Renaissance politician would do. He bought it. He bribed the cardinals. With money, with promises of positions, with gifts of land and titles. This is documented. We have letters describing the bribes. We have receipts. On August 11, 1492, Rodrigo Borgia became Pope Alexander VI. He was 61 years old. He had mistresses. He had children. He had bought the papacy, and now he had absolute power over the Catholic Church. What happened next would define one of the darkest periods in Vatican history. Please like this video, because what comes next is documented. But it's also disturbing. Alexander VI did not hide his lifestyle after becoming Pope. His primary mistress was Vanozza de Catane. She had given him 4 children, Cesare, Juan, Lucrezia, and Geoffrey. These were not secrets. These were acknowledged papal children. Alexander gave them positions, titles, wealth. He made Cesare a cardinal at age 18. He married Lucrezia to powerful nobles to forge political alliances. He used his children as political tools, while claiming to be the vicar of Christ. But Vanozza was getting older, and Alexander, even in his 60s, wanted younger women. Enter Giulia Farnese. She was 15 years old when she became the Pope's mistress in 1489. 15, he was 58. She was called Giulia la Bella, Julia the Beautiful, and she was the Pope's official mistress. Living in the Vatican, everyone knew. Ambassadors wrote about it. Cardinals gossiped about it. The Pope of the Catholic Church had a teenage mistress. Publicly, Giulia's brother Alessandro benefited enormously from her relationship with the Pope. Alessandro would later become Pope Paul III. Yes, a pope who got his position because his sister was the previous pope's mistress. This is documented Vatican history, but the mistresses and acknowledged children, shocking as they were not the worst of it. Let me tell you about the banquet of chestnuts. This event is documented in the diary of Johann Burchard, who was the papal master of ceremonies. He was there. He witnessed it. He wrote it down. Where are you watching from? Comment below. And if this is making you uncomfortable, it should. because this is what happened in the Vatican in 1501. On October 30th, 1501, Pope Alexander VI hosted a banquet in the Vatican Palace. This was not unusual. The Pope hosted many banquets, but this one was different. Johann Burchard describes it in his diary. I'm going to read you what he wrote. Warning, this is explicit. On Sunday evening, October 30th, 1501, Cesare Borgia gave a supper in his chambers in the Vatican, attended by 50 prostitutes called courtesans. After supper, they danced with the servants and others there, first clothed, then naked. Chestnuts were scattered on the floor, which the prostitutes, crawling on hands and knees among the candlesticks, had to pick up with their mouths. The Pope, Cesare, and Lucrezia were all present and looking on. Finally, prizes were offered: silken doublets, pairs of shoes, hats, and other garments for those men who were most successful with the prostitutes. This performance was carried out in the Papal Palace. Read that again. 50 prostitutes, brought into the Vatican, made to crawl naked on the floor picking up chestnuts, while the Pope watched, while his son Cesare watched, while his daughter Lucrezia watched. And then, prizes given to the men who had sex with the most prostitutes. In the Papal Palace, with the Pope presiding, this is not Protestant propaganda. This is written by a Catholic official. Johann Burchard was the Papal Master of Ceremonies. His job was to record Vatican events, and he recorded this because it happened. Modern Catholic apologists claim Burchard was lying or exaggerating, or that the diary was tampered with. But Burchard's diary is consistent with other sources. Ambassadors from Venice and Florence wrote similar accounts. Multiple witnesses, all describing the same event. The Banquet of Chestnuts became infamous across Europe. It symbolized everything that was corrupt about the Renaissance papacy. Subscribe to Historian Diary if you haven't already. This gets worse. Now let me tell you about the allegations that go even darker. The incest allegations between Pope Alexander and his daughter Lucrezia, between Cesare and Lucrezia. These allegations circulated widely in Renaissance Italy. Were they true? We don't know for certain, but let me show you the evidence. Lucrezia Borgia was born in 1480. She was beautiful, educated, and used by her father as a political pawn. He married her off 3 times to forge alliances. Her first marriage was annulled. Her second husband was murdered, possibly by her brother Cesare. Her third marriage was to the Duke of Ferrara, but throughout her life rumors followed her that she was her father's lover, that she was her brother's lover, that she had children by both of them. Contemporary sources mention these rumors. Poems were written about it. Ambassadors gossiped about it. The evidence is circumstantial but disturbing. In 1497, Lucrezia's second husband, Alfonso of Aragon, was mysteriously murdered, strangled in his bed. Most historians believe Cesare ordered it. Why? Some claim it was political. Others claim it was jealousy, that Cesare wanted Lucrezia for himself. In 1498, a child appeared in the Vatican, a boy named Giovanni. 2 papal bulls were issued about him. The first declared him the illegitimate son of Cesare Borgia. The second, issued 1 year later, declared him the illegitimate son of Pope Alexander himself. Why the change? Some historians speculate that Giovanni was actually Lucrezia's child, by her father or her brother, and the papal bulls were attempts to cover up incest. This is speculation. We have no definitive proof, but the fact that these rumors existed, that they were widespread, that they persisted, tells us something. Either the Borgias were actually committing incest, or their behavior was so scandalous that everyone believed they were capable of it. Either way, this is the reputation of a pope. What are you thinking right now? Comment below. Is this real or exaggerated? Or something in between? Let me tell you about another documented event. Another orgy in the Vatican. In 1501, Cesare Borgia organized a horse race. Nothing wrong with that, you might think. Except this race took place in St. Peter's Square. And the participants were prostitutes. Naked prostitutes. Racing horses. In front of the Vatican, with the Pope watching from his window. This is documented by multiple sources. The Venetian ambassador described it. Borgia mentioned it. This happened. Naked prostitutes racing horses in St. Peter's Square while the Pope watched. Think about what that means. The holiest site in Christianity, turned into a brothel, turned into a spectacle by the Pope himself. Alexander VI died on August 18, 1503. He was 72 years old. The cause of death was likely malaria, though rumors claimed he was poisoned. When he died, there was no mourning, no grief. The people of Rome celebrated. They hated him. They despised what he had done to the papacy, to Christianity. To Rome itself, his body was left unattended. It bloated in the summer heat. When they finally took it to be buried, it didn't fit in the coffin. They had to force it in. This is documented. The Pope's body, swollen and rotting, stuffed into a coffin too small for it. A fitting end to a papacy of excess and corruption. After his death, his children lost everything. Cesare, who had been so powerful, was arrested, imprisoned, and eventually killed in battle in Spain in 1507. He was 31 years old. Lucrezia survived longer. She became Duchess of Ferrara, and surprisingly became known for piety and charity in her later years. She died in 1519 at age 39. The Borgia name became synonymous with corruption, with evil, with everything wrong about the Renaissance papacy. And for centuries, the Catholic Church tried to downplay it, to minimize it, to claim it was exaggerated. But the documents exist, the letters, the diaries, the reports from ambassadors, multiple independent sources, all describing the same thing. Orgies in the Vatican, prostitutes in the papal palace, a pope with multiple mistresses and acknowledged children, incest allegations, murders, bribery, corruption at the highest levels of the church. Please like this video and share it. These stories need to be told. These questions need to be asked. So why did this happen? How did Christianity's most sacred institution become this corrupt? The answer is power. When the church became a political entity, when popes were elected through bribery and nepotism, when cardinals were appointed because of family connections rather than faith, the result was inevitable. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the Pope had absolute power. The Renaissance papacy was not about religion. It was about politics, about money, about control over Italy and Europe. The Borgias were not anomalies. They were the logical conclusion of a system that valued power over piety. Other popes of this era were similar. Pope Innocent VIII had 16 illegitimate children. Pope Julius II, who commissioned the Sistine Chapel ceiling, also had 3 illegitimate daughters. Pope Clement VII was himself illegitimate. This was normal. This was accepted. The papacy had become a dynastic office passed through families like any other political position. The Protestant Reformation happened partly because of this corruption. When Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the church door in 1517, he was protesting indulgences. But the deeper issue was corruption. Was the papacy's moral bankruptcy? Luther and other reformers pointed to the Borgias as proof that Rome had lost its way, that the church needed fundamental reform, and they were right. The church did need reform. The Council of Trent, beginning in 1545, finally addressed some of these issues. Clerical celibacy was enforced more strictly. Nepotism was reduced. Financial corruption was addressed. But the damage was done. Christianity was split. Millions left the Catholic Church. And the Borgia Pope became a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. If you've watched this far, thank you. Comment below. Did the Protestant reformers overreact? Or was the corruption really this bad? I am a historian, and my job is to show you what actually happened, not what institutions want you to believe happened. The banquet of chestnuts happened. It's documented. Multiple sources, from Catholic officials themselves, 50 prostitutes, in the Vatican, crawling naked on the floor, while the Pope watched. The incest allegations? Less certain. Maybe true, maybe exaggerated. But the fact that people believed them tells us something about how the Borgias behaved. You don't get accused of incest unless your behavior is already scandalous enough to make people believe you're capable of anything. Pope Alexander VI was not a holy man. He was a politician who bought the papacy, a father who used his children as political tools, a man who turned the Vatican into a palace of pleasure, a pope who represented everything Christianity was supposed to oppose. And the Catholic Church knows this. Modern church historians don't deny the Borgias were corrupt. They just try to contextualize it, to explain it, to minimize it. But the facts remain. For 11 years, from 1492 to 1503, the head of the Catholic Church was a man who hosted orgies in the Vatican. This is history, uncomfortable history, the kind that institutions try to bury. But it happened. And we should know about it, because power without accountability leads to corruption, always. Whether it's the 15th century papacy or the 21st century anything else, the pattern is the same. Subscribe to Historian Diary for more investigations into history's most uncomfortable truths. Write in the comments, what historical scandal should I investigate next? Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia, Father Pope Sinner. He ruled the Catholic Church for 11 years. He hosted orgies in the Vatican. He had mistresses and acknowledged children. He may have committed incest with his daughter. And when he died, Rome celebrated. This is the Vatican's darkest secret. Not that it happened, but that it took so long to admit it happened. Thank you for watching Historian Diary. See you next time.